So let's see. Okay, so yesterday we were working on this folder backend off. So we're gonna need to run our backend to, be able to authenticate and sign up users. Before I do that, though, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clone this repo, the one that I shared with you, the React starter. Okay, clone, and I'm gonna call it front end off. So this clone that repo, that React starter repo, and this front end off. And if I go here to I'm gonna do code front end off. Here, I actually opened the entire folder, the Unit 5 folder that has the backend. This is the backend that we're gonna use, and this is the front end that we're gonna use. This is just a React app, like the ones that you're used to. This one, again, I removed all the stuff that I don't care about, and I only left app and index.js so that we can start with that. Now, hopefully, we will take all in the morning today, so that you could get started on. So the lab is going to be combined, where you take one of your previous projects and you add backend authentication as well as front-end authentication. That could be your React project that you take for yourself. Maybe you fork it and add user authentication in the way that we showed you here, in case you already had some other way of authenticating the user, which I know some of you did. But I want to be able to see sort of the setup that we showed you here in your applications, basically. Sounds good? Cool. So we have this front-end app. Let's actually install the dependencies. Let me close this here. Say that again? Yes, this is just the React starter. I just named it front-end off. I'm going to do front-end off, and I need to do npm install to install the dependencies. No, so right now we are in the same folder we were working yesterday, Unit 5. In Unit 5 we had backend off. That's what we were working yesterday. In Unit 5 I just cloned the React started, which gave me a front end app. So that's the link. Say that again? Yeah, it's the same. You can do npx, create a React app, and then erase what you want, or if it doesn't bother you, you can just leave all the other files. Okay, so it seems that the React app finished installing. I'm going to do npm start to run it. Just make sure that everything is working, and that it doesn't, that it's not failing, basically. Cool. Now, this is my leaned down version of the React app. It just has this text here. Yes.
When I download stuff, just like anything, it has like a it says like 4 issues or whatever.
Vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's like 3. Vulnerabilities like 3 are cool, and then
For that, you just need to make sure that when you create a React app, you always create it with like the latest version, which is guaranteed by MPX, Create React App. I'm not sure, was that in the front end or the back end?
It was in back end yesterday.
Okay, so then that's a little slightly different. We could take a look more in detail.
Things that was said that was appreciated, and I don't remember the last thing.
I mean,
This is what we get last time because of the
oh, the views problem, right? Oh yeah, I remember now.
the same.
Yeah, it's. For now, we can ignore those vulnerabilities because that's because when you created your app, you didn't specify the no view, and that brings in some template stuff that is outdated. So we could also remove that, but we can look into it later on. Okay, so the app that we're going to be building is something like this, where we have our app, our main component, as always. Then we're going to have like four main components. We're going to have a nav bar for navigation. We're going to have a home just for presentation, introduction. We're going to have a private route. We're going to build this component. How to have a route that is protected, so to say, and not allow a user that is not logged in to access something else. That private route will render a list of users. So for this case, we're going to imagine that our users are protected resource, right? Just like we did yesterday, that if you're not logged in, you can't see a list of all the users. And in the front end, this private route is the one that's going to check if the user is logged in. If it's logged in, show them the users. If they're not logged in, redirect them to the login page. We're going to have this component called auth container. This is a pattern that we haven't talked much about in React, but you will generally have, and you probably have seen also in tutorials, people talking about containers and components, where a container is generally a class component that has some state, and it renders some functional components, and those are the stateless components. So in here, for instance, we're going to have auth container is going to have state. Login form and signup form will be functional components. They don't have state. They are merely presentational components. But these two components, the login form and the signup form, will call functions on the auth container to set the auth container state, and so on. So I was holding on this sort of separation from just components into sort of two types of components: container components, and presentational components. Where the only is more of a the only difference is that auth container or any component that you see that is whatever container generally has state, and it renders some other non-stateful or functional components that are just presentational. And we're going to see why that is useful. Questions about the app that we're going to be building? We're going to be making access requests to check if the user is logged in, check, log in the user, sign out the user, and especially check if the user is currently logged in, if they have sort of an active session, so to say. Now, the approach that is in the readme for the lesson today is a different approach from the one I'm going to show you today. That one is using local storage, which is also fine. I just thought that it wasn't really necessary. And I would say, I'll prefer to offer you a different approach that you can see and sort of have two options to choose from and to compare, basically. This both have in common the private route, the auth container, so it's just sort of the use of local storage that I deem unnecessary that we're going to be working with. So, any questions about the app we're building? Hopefully this will again, take us all in one today. Yes.
What's the private route again?
Yeah.
It's all the custom stuff.
Yeah, this private route is a route that we're going to build, and it's going to work exactly as the regular routes that we're familiar with React Router DOM, but it's going to have an extra check, which is it's going to check if the user is logged in. If the user is logged in, then show users. Otherwise, redirect to redirect to a login page. So another way which we sort of visualize this is logged in. Yes. No. Users. Redirect. You could also think it in this sort of way. The private route will ask sort of this question: is the user logged in? If yes, then show them the private component, which in this case is going to be users. If no, then redirect them to the login page. So we're going to have, at any, again, sort of as we were working on yesterday, we're going to say our users, to get a list of users, you have to be logged in, right? We want that to be sort of a private route. Now, the cool thing about the private route is that we can just reuse anywhere we want. Anywhere we want a private route, so that the user is required to be logged in to access, we just reuse the private route. Maybe we can get to see two examples, one with the users, and then maybe we can make another one. Other questions? We're not going to use Redux. Redux will make this a little bit easier, but since this is new, better just to avoid it, so as to not get lost in Redux and authentication stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. So again, this is a lean down version of a Create React app. I'm going to create two folders, one called components, and another one called containers. And for now, we're just going to have actually just one. Oh. Say that again? This always has some stuff because it's from the Create React app.
How about you drag the folder in?
Oh, no. In source, having source selected, I created two folders, components and containers. So let's start with here, so we can get into the nitty-gritty. So the link that I shared has the final version. Let's see, actually, let's just do it here. So in components, let's start creating a navbar, JSX. And this navbar has to be this navbar will return a nav and will return some links. So here we're going to make some links. We're going to have one to go to home. As always, feel free to raise your hand with any questions. export default. So we're gonna have a link to home, a link to /login. I wonder if it would be good to sort of have the same routes as in the backend, where /auth/login. It doesn't have to be. Let's just do it like this, and if we have time, we can look at that. I'm gonna do login and sign up. Login, sign up, log in, and we're gonna have another link to users. So what we did there was just define the links for these routes that I have here. We have /user is going to render the private route, just the slash is going to render home, /login and /signup should render the auth container. And then if this is /login, this is going to be /signup. So these two should render the auth container, and the auth container, depending on which one it is, should render the login form or the sign up form. Cool. So once we have a simple navbar, let's go on app. Let's import it here. Navbar. Choose it there, then import here. From current folder, components, navbar. Export default. I have a mistake here. Export default navbar. And then we get some other errors. Why are we getting these errors? We're not importing it. That's correct. After we import, we're going to see another error. Never install React Router, so let's do that. npm install. We're also going to need Axios, so let's do that at once. Axios React Router DOM. So let's install those two that we're going to need. Cool, so that install Axios and React Router DOM. Let's fire up our application again with npm start. It's loading. Now we should get another error. What's this error about? Browser router. A link without a browser router doesn't know where to go. I like to do that in index. Import browser router from React Router DOM. And then here we wrap app with the browser router. Just like that. And now we have our app happily running again. My links are showing up. Cool, they changed the URL. But why don't I see different things when I click on different links? Say that louder, Cameron.
They don't exist.
What don't exist?
The ones that you're trying to go to.
Yes. What else doesn't exist besides that? Besides those components? The switch and routes, right? So let's do that in app. Let's define. Yeah, let's start defining these routes first. So going in app, we're going to return a switch here. I'm going to remove my text. This is a React app, no longer needed. Switch. I think that imported automatically. No. Oh. So let's import it here from React router. React router DOM. We're going to import switch and route. Now we just create a few routes here. Route, path. Let's start with login. Path login. The component that is going to be rendered. Component is going to be something that we're going to call the auth container. So this is, we're going to have a little bit of repetition here, just one line repeated, but not sure we're going to get to eliminate that repetition, but you know, it's not as much. So here we're going to define these two routes, /login and /signup. Both will render the auth container. There is a way in which you could do it. I guess we could show it here. If you want more than one sort of path to render the same component, turns out that this path here, this could be a regular expression, and you could do something like this. I want it to be login or sign up. That vertical bar means or. And if it's login or sign, if it's slash, the slash has to be there. And if it's login or sign up, it's going to go to the auth container. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it sort of the long way, which is with two routes. But regular expression of the paths can be quite helpful. So just two separate routes, they just render the same component, something we call the auth container. So we got these two covered, login and sign up. Let's do users, let's go, and let's do home. So let's do route, path, users, component, users. And let's do route, path, just the slash, component, home. Next we're gonna write these components. Any questions so far?
Wouldn't you not want them to be the same switch or same file? Because if the user just types in users, they can get there without having to worry about auth container. Or is it
Say that again.
I was wondering if the user can bypass the auth container by just going directly to the users.
Yes, initially, yes, they will be bypassing that, but then private route comes to our rescue. Right now, look, like we're gonna change this later on. This is gonna be private route, and we're gonna write our own private route. For now, let's just leave it route, just for now. Cool. So let's write these components. So the container. Actually, let's import them here even before we write them. We will import auth container from, this is going to come from current folder containers auth container. And that doesn't exist yet, but let's keep going. Let's going to import home. Home is just going to be a presentational component, so it's not a container. Also, I think this is a must read. Dan Abramov. This guy he works in React, if you don't know who he is yet. He works in React and he was a co-creator of Redux. And components, container components. This is one of the, This is a great read for deepening what we're talking about here. So it's about having container components and presentational components is about separation of concerns. The presentational components is just in charge of displaying information. They don't have any state. They don't have much logic. And the container components usually have state. They have more advanced logic, and they also make network requests and so on. So it's about separation of concerns. Let me share this with you right now before I forget. This is a great read for after if you still feel like confused about why container versus just components. Let me share this in here. I'm going to share it on online resources. Right, and the way that he called it is smart and dumb components. Regularly, the containers are also known as smart components, or that's what he called them here. And dumb components are just presentational components. They don't do anything. They display information, not that they don't do anything. So we're going to import from, and we're going to import home from components, not containers, components / home. And we're going to import users from components / users. Again, we haven't written this. Yes?
Are we going to simplify that kind of importing, like importing all the users at the same time?
Yeah. Yep.
There's like a kind of way to import on one line multiple different files, and then you go to another file, kind of like we did with the root container or Redux.
Mm-hmm.
We're just exporting them onto that one file, and then we import from that file to the MJS.
Right. What Cameron is saying is, what you could do is in containers or in components, you could have an index.js file, and in that index.js file, it has to be named index.js though. In that index.js file, you can import everything from all the different places, and then from here, we will be able to do something like this. But this is gonna look for an index.js. So this and index.js is the same thing. When you don't put a file like that, it's gonna look for an index.js file, and in that file you just import everything and make sure you export everything as well, and then you will be able to do this. Mm-hmm. So let's go back. Okay, so in fact, I'm gonna steal the home component. Oops, I forgot. There's to do home from the link that I shared with you. That has sort of the final version. That is the link on Slack. Lesson streams. Lessons code. This one here in components, I'm just gonna steal this home, which I could have just written as well. So copy that. Oh, you see what I did there? I don't like, sometimes I copy from here and that fucks up my code with some hidden characters, and then Node and React complains saying unexpected end of input or whatever. So when I copy, I like to click on this button, raw. That opens the raw file, and then from here I do Command A, select everything, Command C, copy, and then paste it. So I'm going to go to components, and I'm going to create a file called home.jsx. I'm just going to paste this here, and we get our home component. Very simple. It's not gonna get any more sophisticated than that. I'm also going to steal users. Users should be a component that shouldn't surprise us. Let's look at it here. Let's go back here. Go back to components, and we have users JXX here. So let me copy it first. It's a bulk component. Components, create a new file, call users.jsx, paste this here, and let's look at what this is doing. So the user file, as we can imagine, is a stateful component. In its state, it has an empty array of users. As soon as the component mounts, it's going to make a Nexus call or a network request to get all the users. Once it gets all the users, it's just going to set the state with those users. Let's do this. It's just going to set the state with the users.com in the response payload. And it's just going to render, right now, it's just going to render a list of those users. So in here, we're mapping over the users, and we're mapping over the users, and for each user, creating one of these divs. In fact, let's simplify this. Instead of being in 2 p tags, I'm just going to do it like this. Remove this span from here, all in one.
Where's that?
I put it on the lessons lesson streams. Is the link on lesson code. I could tag you here. I just tagged you on the link.
Why are you moving this man?
Say that again.
Why are you moving this man?
Why
Why
am
are
I?
you moving this man?
Oh, I'm just moving it because I want the ID and the username to appear in the same line. And right now, before we had it in 2 different lines, so I'm just gonna do this. And I need a closing div. Like this. No need for that. That closes there, then this return. Then I'm missing extra parentheses here. This is just going to create a list. In fact, let's be. Let's create a UL here, since this is a list, actually. So we're going to have a list, and for each one, we're going to create an LI. Just like that. So I have a UL, and we're going to have a list of users. Yes? Oh no, let me do that. Here, let's do that in these lesson streams too. So I just share it in the lesson streams so that you can also inspect the code more closely. So users, again, is just a simple component that is going to keep some users in the state. As soon as it mounts, it's just going to make a network request to get all the users. Once it sets those users to the state, it's just going to iterate over them, and for each one, create an LI that displays the ID and the user username. Now, let's see. Actually, let's also put maybe, I'm going to put a div here with an h1 that says users. Maybe an h2. It says users, and I'm just going to close that here. Where here? So just a div with an h2 that says users, and a UL with LIs that are going to contain the user, a list of users basically. Okay, so we have our users component. Any questions so far? Douglas, you could join the this link so you can have access to the code on a separate window of VS Code. Okay, so we have our users. We're missing auth container. Let's create auth container. For now, just gonna be an empty component. Containers. Create a file here called auth container JSX, and then this. Let's start this. I installed this extension called React snippets. I'm still learning to use it, but it lets you. I think it's snippets. No. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I installed this one. What this it's cool. It's not really necessary. What is cool is that you could do these sort of shortcuts, IMP, and that's gonna type in import module from module for you. And you could do. There are some React ones for instance, I just did class. I just did this one, RCC, and then that writes this for me. Sort of some scaffolding for that. And let me show you again once I go here. This is the extension that I installed. Let's close this. What I did here, let's say I wanted to create this component. What I did was RCC, then I type enter, and it wrote this for me basically. Can save quite some typing. I don't like, this is fine, you could do this export default class auth container extends component. That to me is too much in one line. So I like to move this to the bottom. Like that, and then this is going to be a class component. We're gonna see next why. For now, let's just put a h2 here saying auth container will contain login form and sign up form. Let's just leave it like that. Let's close users, and let's see. So what I want to check now is, I think we have all the components. If we open the terminal, maybe my app should be running just fine, just because we actually now created these components. We have an auth container, we have a users and home, and those are all here, components and containers. let's see if now we actually get different results in here. So let's go to home. Okay, we are welcome to users. This is the home page. We go to login. We get the auth container. This will contain the login form and the sign up form. We go to /signup. We still get this auth container. That's fine because the auth container will contain both the login form and the sign up form. We go to users and we get the users. Cool. Any questions about this setup so far? Some routes, the users component, or the auth container is empty. We're gonna start working on that next. But any questions so far? Some links, some routes, nothing out of the ordinary so far. Okay. So now, well, we're gonna make a small change on our package JSON in the front end. What we're going to do, well, let's do this first. So here, the users component should make a network request to our backend to get all the users, right? So in here, we will need to pay our backend route, which is http://localhost 3100. That's my port. You may have a different one if you set it up, just like this, right? Localhost 3100/users. So let's see a couple of things here, more to sort of be aware. Let's see if when our users component mounts, we're firing this network request. How can we check that? How can I check that the user is firing the network request? I mean,
Can you find console log in the server part or just look by inspecting?
by inspecting, right? So let's inspect here. Let's open the network tab. Let's maybe go to home, refresh the app. So we start clean. Let me add some zoom here. I'm gonna clean the network with this. I'm gonna go to users, and we get a network request going out here. Right now it says failed because, well, why is it failing? Failed to load response data. A little bit louder, camera.
I was wondering if your server was on.
That's correct. My server is not running. So make sure that your server is running. I'm going to open another terminal here to run the server. So the server we created yesterday in backend auth. So I'm going to go there. Right. These are our files. I'm going to do npm run start dev to run with node1. Our server is running. So to verify that the network request is being sent, we can check the network tab in our developer tools. Super helpful. And we could also check the console log in our server here to see if the network request arrived. Okay, so we have our two apps are running. Now let's start back here. Go to home. Let's refresh this app. Let's clear the network. And then let's go to users and see what we got. So we got users and we got a 401 unauthorized. So maybe this is a different problem, right? It didn't fail. It's just 401 unauthorized. Let's check if this network request touched our backend by looking at the log. And we have here that it did touch our backend. It was a get request /users reply with a 401. Why is it replying with a 401? What did we see yesterday? Nash? Because I'm not logged in, right? And if we go to the backend, which I have here, let me collapse this. We go to the backend, and we go to the routes, and we go to the user routes. We see that we have, this is the route that is going to get all the users, right? And we put yesterday this middleware here, login required. This middleware will check, if we go there, this middleware is this function here in our helpers that just checks if there is a user in the request object. Remember that the presence of a user in the request object means we have an active session and the user is in the session storage, right? If there is a user in the request, then run the next middleware. Otherwise, reply with a 401 saying you need to be logged in to access this route. Right? So we will need to log in to access all the users, to get a list of all the users. But even before we do that, I wanted to show you, let's say we get, let's go back to the users route in here. And let's comment this out. I'm going to comment this out. The comma has to be inside of the comment. I'm going to comment that out so that we see this as, even if we're logged, even if we're logged out, even if we're not logged in. So let's look at here. Let's look at it on Postman. I think this is this request. Localhost 3100/users. I had send. I can get the users, right? And I don't need to log in, even though, just to make sure, let me erase the cookies. No cookies now. Hit send, and we still get our users, right? Going back to this, what this is doing, let me show you again. Login require, that refresh my server. If I go on Postman and I hit send again, now I get this error or this message saying you need to be logged in to access that route. So that's what login require is doing. Right now I'm just going to comment this out. So let's say, imagine getting all the users is public. It doesn't need to be logged in to access in our backend. And when I send that with Postman, it works fine. Now let me send it again, which is this same request. This same request, I'm going to send it with my React app. When I go to users, that should fire. And we get this. And I wanted to touch based on this, just so that we have it in mind. Let's sort of start from the beginning. Go to home, clear the network. Clear the network. I go to users, and I see this network request was fired, and it was 200 now, right? That's because we're not required to log in before we can access this, just because I commented out that part. If I go to response, I don't get anything here. Nothing to preview. This request has no response available. This might be very puzzling at first, where it's saying the request went okay. In Postman it works, but in the browser it doesn't work. This is because of course. Do you remember what course means? Cross-origin resource sharing. Right? Yes. No, I haven't cleared the database, but that shouldn't make a difference in you. You've seen what? And do you see anything in the page showing up here? Okay. Try to console log the response and see if you actually get a response. You should not be getting a response unless you had set up course yourself before. So again, this is because of course. This shows here that our request went okay, and it went okay, but the browser is preventing you to access the response due to a security concern the browser has, basically. Because it's saying, oh, your website, which is running on localhost 3000, is making a request to another domain, to localhost 3100. That's a completely, those could be completely different computers, completely different servers. And the browser is saying, the browser implemented the cross-origin resource sharing policy, which says you're not allowed to access a resource that is in another domain unless that other domain explicitly says you can access it. Right now, that other domain is localhost 3100. That is our Express server, and our Express server is not explicitly allowing our front end to access that resource. So here we will have two options. One is install course in our server, right? That will work. But that will work, and I spent, like after I left from here, I spent maybe like an hour figuring out why it wasn't working. Course will solve our issue just momentarily. What I discovered yesterday is that since going back to the fact that our server is giving the client a cookie, if that cookie is coming from another domain that's not the current website, the cookie will not be sent with further requests. So let's go with another approach, which is setting up a proxy. And let's sort of visualize here what that looks like. So we're not going to install course. And you see, for instance, course is only on browsers. Course they don't apply to a backend application or an application running in Node, or it doesn't apply to Postman, for instance. Right? We can access the users with Postman because course is a policy that is for the browser only. So based on that, we have our backend here. We have our backend here, and we have our front end here. Now, our front end is, we know that this one is running on port 3100 or whatever you picked, and this one is running on port 3000. Right? These are two different applications. And our front end, I think I mentioned this slightly, and I think it will offer, it will be good to have some context. I said, the way in which React lets you change something and refresh is because your React application is running in a Webpack server. A Webpack server is just a server that comes with React that will just look at changes in your files and will repackage your application as it sees changes in your files. But we could think of our front end as having two parts, right? Like, we could think of it as the HTML, JavaScript, CSS. This is, and maybe I should have to call this this React app. Or front end, doesn't really matter. And we have that Webpack server. Also, this sort of to give a little bit more context, because we get that server, we get the Webpack server thanks to create a React app. If we were building a React app from scratch, we will not have hard reloading. We'll need to set up the server ourselves. And what Webpack lets you do is lets you package your front-end application so that from a bunch of files from all these components that we have, Webpack will bundle all that into a few different files. We'll also minify them if we set that, so that is sort of compressed and all bundled together in a few files. We're actually going to do that. And that process is known as compilation, where you're taking your source code, you bundle it into a few different files, and you get the bundle version or the built version. Tomorrow we're going to need to build our React apps to be able to deploy them. Let's go back to that later. So we can think of our React apps as having, the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS, and the Webpack server. The Webpack server is the one that is running on 3000, and the Webpack server is the one that is serving these files when you go to localhost 3000. Our backend is running on 3100, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of this Webpack server so that our application, this is the JavaScript that we write, this is the JSX, the HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So that our application, instead of this is currently what we're doing. When we try to get all the users, our application is sending a network request directly to the backend, right? And I said, well, we could use enable course in the backend, and that will work. And the problem is cookies. When cookies are being set from another domain, they don't get sent on every request. So unless we do some convoluted setup. Anyway, so what we're going to do is instead of making that request directly to the backend, what we're going to do is we're going to set up what is known as a proxy in the Webpack server. And that is the Webpack server, the one that's going to send the request here. Now, instead of our application, this is our code. You can think of this is our code. This is our React code. There's HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Instead of our application making that request directly, our application will make the request to the Webpack server. And then the Webpack server, because it's a server, course don't apply to it, is going to forward that request to our backend. The actual setup is simpler than this. I want you to sort of have a mental model for what we're going to do. It's actually just one line that we need to write, and this will happen for us. But instead of our application, our code, making the request directly to our backend, the request will be made to the Webpack server. The Webpack server will forward that request to our backend. Also, one advantage of this is that we're going to be able to, instead of typing this entire URL in our users here, instead of typing all these things, we just need to do /users. That's going to be one advantage. And let's actually get to it. So I removed that localhost from there. What we need to do is go in the package.json of our application, of our front end. At the bottom, it doesn't really matter. It has to be a top-level key. I'm going to add it here at the end. As a top-level key, I'm going to say proxy. And then here I'm going to say http ://localhost 3100. That's it. With that, we just did this. Now, the setting up the proxy sometimes has issues with the node modules. Let's see if we have those. If you're having some issues with the network request, raise your hand. I can go to you. I think we do need to restart our React app. So I'm going to kill it from here, restart it. For the settings to pick up, sometimes that's not enough, and sometimes we need to remove all the node modules and then install them again, because there seems to be some setup that happens under the hood that I'm not aware of. Okay, so see that worked already. We get a list of the users with their ID and their username. That's because I was in the users page, and we have the user. The users page as on component amount is going to make that now request. So again, two things we did was add the proxy, which is going to forward request from the our app to our backend. And in users, instead of doing HTTP localhost 3100, we just do /users. Yeah, I just added as the top level key. So you see these like name, version, private dependencies. Those are all top level keys. It doesn't matter where you put it. You can put it at the top. I put it at the bottom. Here proxy, HTTP localhost 2000, 3100, and this is in the package JSON of our front end application. Not in our backend, in our front end. When I was learning, we were not taught about course, and we had like the toughest time with course. And I remember now that we were doing this stuff from the beginning, the proxy part here. And then out of sort of not knowing that this was here and now we had to do this step, we also had trouble sort of troubleshooting later on when we were deploying. But yeah, this is technically doing what I sort of tried to illustrate here. Everyone's app is working in this fashion. When you go to users, you get a list of users. Yes. Let's make sure everyone is on this same page. that? Wait, what's that? You're getting the same user side? I'm getting. That's because you're.
Why not? Oh, actually, no, I want to get yours.
Oh wait, how do you use mine?
We can't have the same host as you, otherwise.
Hold on, so this one. Actually,
Did you do
you know, I've grabbed everything I needed to.
the proxy? Do you have the proxy packages? So this is there's some syntax error. You need the comma after the parentheses. There you go.
Ah,
You need to restart the file server.
you have, I think we created an empty
Okay, any questions about what we have so far? So we set up the proxy again to get around cores, and the other reason why we did that was um, to allow our cookie from the backend to be set in our front end. If we enable cores in our backend and we don't have the proxy, we will be able to get the information, but we will not be able to get the cookie for subsequent requests. Okay, so here we have the users. Now let's go back to saying, okay, the user has to be logged in for those to appear. If you're not logged in, let's not let them access it. Oh, also I wanted to show you here how you can inspect the cookie. If we go to, in here, there's another tab that we haven't looked at much called Application. This tab shows you some information here on the left, and on storage, you can see the local storage, and you can also see cookies. Our cookie is here being set. And this is the value of our cookie, which is an ID, our session ID. We don't need to, care too much about it. That's all being handled for us. So, but here is, this was what I was troubleshooting yesterday, where I had cores enabled in my backend, and my cookie was not being set. And then I was reading online, and it turns out that yes, cookies by default will be set only on the domain of the request. And because I was making a request to a backend that was in another port, in another domain, that cookie was not being saved and sent in subsequent requests. So in here we can inspect our cookie, then have that in mind. Now let's go back to our backend, not letting a user access the users if they are not logged in. So what I'm going to do is I go back here. We can close the package.json. We no longer need this as long as we have set up the proxy. And in our backend, I need to go to the backend route users. I'm going to uncomment the login require, so that we require a user to be logged in to access the users. Now if I go back here, if I go back home and get back to users, I should get nothing, because now my request is failing with a 401. You're not authorized to access this resource. You're not logged in, and we don't have an active session. Okay, so let's actually look at the network request to see. We see the network request being made here as I go to users. And then when I inspect it, it says 401 unauthorized. If I look at the response, let's look at on preview, payload null and message, you need to be logged in to access this route. This is the response that we're sending if there is no user logged in. Questions so far? Yeah, in here, when you're inspecting the response, you got response and preview. These two are the same thing. Preview is a pretty version of the response. Response is the raw thing. Okay, so now our request is failing because we're not logged in. Now then we have to think about how to make it succeed. How do we actually log in? Another comment I wanted to make is, let's look at this. I'm gonna remove the cookies. If I go to application, then cookies here, I see that cookie and I click this button to clear them. Note how I make a request. I'm gonna go back to home. Go to home, and I'm gonna go back to users. When I go to users, my app is gonna make a network request to try to get all the users. That network request is gonna fail because we're not logged in. However, we do get a cookie. We go to users, the cookie pops up here. This is, our server gave us a cookie. It's just that that cookie is not associated with any user at the moment. You know how you go to some websites and they let you like browse and add stuff to your cart even when you're not logged in, and then when you log in, you know those items actually appear in your cart. This is how it's done. The application gives you a cookie, and the information that you have in your cart is being kept in that cookie. And when you log in, then that cookie is associated with yours, with your session with yourself. And that's so. This is sort of, we didn't notice this yesterday, but whenever we make a network request now, because we have enable Express session, our Express server is giving us a cookie. That cookie is not associated with any user until we log in. Okay, and also let's look at it here. If we go to the network and we inspect this network request that fail, if you look into headers, you can also see the cookie here. You see that in the response headers there is this properly named set cookie header. This is the same cookie. This is what actually got us the cookie. Okay, so let's actually get to the point, which is to log in our users. So for this, I'm going to go to the code, the final version, and I'm going to copy components. I'm going to copy the login form and the sign up form. Let me copy that raw. Copy this. I'm going to go, let me close all my backend stuff now because I don't need it. Index.js we don't need, user.js we don't need. Now in here, I'm going to go to components, and in components I'm going to create two. One, login form, JSX, paste this here. Actually, the sign up form is exactly the same as the login form in our cases. They just have some text change. So I'm going to create the sign up form here. Oops, I forgot the JSX. And I'm going to go back one more, and just copy my sign up form. So these are the login form and the sign up form. They are identical, just some functions and some names change, but in theory they are the same. In fact, we could just do with one, but I didn't want us to maybe get too confused in just having one form that serves as both. We actually have then two forms. Let's look at this form. This form is just a functional component. Everything it takes in is through props. We are destructuring the props here in the argument itself. You know, this will look like that. Now this could be in one line, like that. Remember that when we have a functional component, what we get in the arguments is the props, right? We could just destructure there straight in there. So this is we're gonna get a username, a password, a handle change, and a login user function. Remember that this login form, and sign up form will be a child of the auth container. So the auth container is the one that's going to give these props to the login and sign up form. Has a handle submit that prevents the default, and then it calls the login user function. That this login user function we haven't written yet, but this function we know is going to come through props. What that means is that then a parent or an ancestor has to pass it down. That person is, or that component will be the auth container. We're going to have a function login user on the auth container or on app, and that's going to be passed down to our login form. So we have our login form in here. Simple, a div with an h2. Let me maybe do this an h3. To make it a little bit smaller. And we have a form. We have an unsubmit attached to it. We have two inputs, one for username, one for password. Both are sharing the same handle change. We can do that, and we have a submit button with the word text login. Sign up form, exactly the same, username, password, handle change. The function is different, which is sign up user. Let me put this in one here at the top. We have same handle submit, but instead of logging in the user, we're going to sign it up now. We have a form with a handle submit, two input boxes, exactly the same, username and password, and a submit with the text sign up. Now, again, these two functional components, they don't have any state, and they will be a child of the auth container. The auth container will have the state for the username and password, for instance, and so on. Any questions about the login and sign up form? They're not connected to anything yet. They're going to be connected to the auth container. Questions? Okay. Let's go then here. In auth container then now, we're going to have some state. I'm going to stop doing the constructor, just because we can also do it like this, just state. Some of you have already doing this. Instead of syntactical sugar, because it was so common to write the constructor and super, they said, let's get rid of that and just have people write less code. So we could just do this state. And here we're going to keep username, empty string, password, empty string. We're going to get back to the state in a bit. Now here, instead of this p tag now, what we're going to have is we're going to have two routes. I'm going to do switch here, which we need to import, and we're going to need also route switch. And then here we're going to say route path. When it's login, render the login form. When it's sign up, render the sign up form. And then here at the top, we need to import those. Import login form from dot slash, no, dot slash, containers or components, login form. Same for the other. I'm just gonna copy that line, paste it. Remember that you don't have to select the line to copy. You can just do Command C anywhere without selecting, and that copies the entire line automatically. Sign up form. Sign up form. So I think our forms should be showing up now, even though they're useless yet because we haven't connected them to state. They're not sending out requests yet. Cool. So auth container right now is literally the container that contains the two forms. So if we go to our app, React app, oh, do you notice that they changed the logo? It's a lighter green, lighter blue. If we go to home, home works the same. Users still breaks. Let's go to login. We get the login form. Let's go to sign up. We get the sign up form. I think I forgot to change the sign up form to be an H3. This is just aesthetics, doesn't really matter. Or we could install it with, you could install it with CSS. I just wanted this auth container to be present when we're rendering the auth container. Regularly, we could just get rid of it. And we have our two forms showing up. Everyone got those two to work? Login form and sign up form, they show up. Yes. Do you have your routes correct? So here there is this slight repetition we have here is this. Auth container here has a switch with two routes, /login and /signup. Let's look it side by side. And on app, we have something very similar, which is a route for login and sign up. So if it's login or sign up, it goes to the auth container, and then the auth container does looks at the route again, and if it's login, show the login form. If it's sign up, show the sign up form. This is fine for now. Let me know if you find a way later on to reduce that duplication. Okay, so questions or comments so far? Yeah, it's fine the way it is. I found that I like this way, where I just set the slash all the way at the bottom. Okay, so let's going back to the auth container. Then we need to hook up this auth container to the forms so that when the user types in text in the form, the state in the auth container is updated. And that is going to be, if we go to, let's set up, for instance, the sign up form first. Let's open up here the auth container. So right now, the auth container is rendering the sign up form when the route is /signup. And we want to pass in the sign up form is expecting a username, a password, a handle change, and a sign up user function. So let's start writing those. Let's start with the handle change. So I'm gonna define here handle change. Would this receive the event? Yes. then this handle change is going to be universal, so that we could use it for both the username and the password, and for both forms. The way we can make that happen is note here that in the forms I gave the input a name. That name identifies that input, and this name matches the key that I set in property, username and password, and it matches for both the sign up form and the login form. They both have the name whose they both have a name that will match as the property. So what we could do here is something like this: const input name equal e.target.name, and then say this.set state. Let's do this: const input value as well, e.target.value, right? And then we can say set state, set the key that has that input name, set it to be the input value, like this. Now we have this handle change that will work for all the input boxes, username and password, as long as those have the names that match the properties on the state. Yeah.
I was going to say, instead of input name in the array, e.target.name.
Yes, we could do it there. This is not an array, actually. That's a good point. This here, this square brackets, well, this is keying into sort of that the key. This is what is known as a computed property. When you're going to look up a key in an object, right, and you don't know what that key is going to be, or that key is going to be saved in a variable, this is how you need to do it in square brackets. And here, the key is going to be the name of the input, the e.target.name. So that's going to be either username or password, right? And then that gets plugged in here, username, let's say, and then input value will be saved into the username. And on some other time, then it was going to be the password, and the password will get plugged in here, and we will set the password key. Okay, so we have that. Then I think we can start passing those to our components. So we have a handle change, and so on. Now, how do we pass in this function? I want to pass this function handle change to my sign up form. How do I do that? Yes, say that a little bit louder. That's the correct answer.
Change component to render to make a function to access the
Yes, so we change the component to render, and then instead of passing the component, we now need to pass a function that returns that component. This is the way in which we can pass in props to a component that is being rendered in a route, in case you haven't encountered this yet. We talked about this when we saw the router. Also, you could write the function here, something like this. You could do something like this. Right? We are passing in a function that returns our component. And because we're using arrow functions, implicit return, no need for the return keyword. So we could do this. If it's a small thing, you can do that. I don't like this as much just because my lines end up being too long when I pass in the props. Because here then I could pass handle change, for instance. I could do this, that, handle change. Right? Something like this. But that line is too long. I prefer to write the function somewhere else and just pass it here, which is what we're going to do next. But I want to show you that we have the render, we have our function, we pass in a function that returns our component, and if I go to my app, it still works exactly the same. But now my sign up form is receiving a prop. If we look in here, the components, and then we look into my signup form, we have our prop here, handle change. Right? Now, just so that we stress a point here, as a thing that we have mentioned a few times. Now, signup form is being rendered in the route with the render, right? Render property in the route, and the login is still being rendered with the component. This thing. We have a component here and a render here. When a component is being rendered by component, via the component prop, the route automatically passes some props to it. And it passes 3 props. What are those? Joey?
Location and history.
I think so. Let's look into login. That is still being rendered. And we have this is interesting. This seems that there's 2 props being passed, children and value. And I think this might be, yeah, but I was referring to these ones. The history, the location, and match. Those are being passed automatically when a component is being rendered in a route via the component. When we render a component via render, we sort of lose those, but we could access them if we need to. But let's look at the signup, which is being rendered via render. See the props, we lost those. We no longer have history, location, or match. We could still pass them, or they are still reachable. The thing is that those will be coming here, and I like to call these guys something like route props. And if I need to pass it to the signup form, what we could do is like this structure right here. This is something like that. We spread it in there, and if we go back to our signup form, we should see that now our signup form has access to those props in case we need them. In this case, we're actually not going to need it. Let's see, go back to signup. Let's see our components fresh in here. And we have here in our signup, we have our history, location, and match. That's just some sort of sign out whenever you need to access, whenever you may want to access any of those props that are being passed by the route. Just remember that the function receives something I like to call route props. Some people just call it props. And those are the props that the route is passing to your component. Let me get rid of that and go back to the main point, which is we need to pass in the handle change function to our signup form component, and we needed to write that in a function like that so that we could actually pass in those props. And then I was saying this is fine. I generally cut this from here and just write it somewhere here. Now here I generally call this function something like render login form. That is literally the same function. I'm just going to do it more explicitly with return. Something like this. And then instead of writing that function here, I just call it by its name, render login form. This to me is a little bit cleaner. So same drill. In here you will get the route props if you need those. I don't think in this case we're going to ever need to. Well, let's see. Right now, if we go to our browser, our forms still work exactly the same. Remember that we're passing this handle change so that the signup form can update the parent state, which is the auth container. So right now, I think if we type in something in the auth container, in the signup form, it should be in our state. Let's look at that. If we inspect this here, let's look at components. Let's look at auth container. And let's look here our state. So in fact, you can see that I already have, because my browser, I had set it up to save my username and password for localhost. I still have something in. Let me remove this. Yeah. It's gonna start filling out. I'm just gonna remove all my passwords so that no passwords don't appear with passwords here. So auth container. If we set up our handle change correctly, let's inspect the state here. This again is this the state of auth container? Let's do Alejo 4373. That updated the username. Now we go on to the password input. Let's do hello 123. That updated the password state in the auth container. So this is telling us that our handle change is set up correctly. We're able to set the state. I think right now because auth container or because signup form and login form are sharing auth container state, I think if I go to login, oh, okay. I was expecting to see, I was expecting to see my username here and my password here. But I guess we haven't gotten to that yet. But anyway, we have here in our state, whatever I type in here.
Looks like it erases it.
It doesn't erase it, it's still there, it's just that we're not accessing back. Okay, so we have a place where we can keep a username and password, and this place is shared for the two forms. Going back here, let's look back at this signup form. So remember that the signup form then is expecting a username and a password, handle change, and a signup user. So in here, besides this, we're gonna need to pass those two. So let's pass in the current username. So I'm gonna break that in multiple lines so that it's not a too long line. Something like this. Same thing, just broken down in multiple lines, and I'm gonna pass in the username from the state. So there's this structure here, username and password from equal this state, and username equal username, password equal password. Okay. And let's leave sign up user for the end. Yes.
Is the name render login form correct, or should we render signup?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. That's a very good observation. This should be render signup form. Thank you for that. Render signup form. Okay, so we have the username, and again we pass. This goes back to we oftentimes have a handle change, and we set the on change, and we also set the value of the input boxes. We need to pass in those values from the app to the child sign-up form so that the child can have a fully controlled component like this. Username and password. I think from here, yeah.
You don't want the login form?
Yeah, I think we should have the login form before we keep going with the sign up form. Or here, let's do this. Let's have something for the sign up user. So for the signup user, in the auth container, we're just going to create a function called signup user, not sign. This user, this signup user function, right now, let's say make network request to /signup/auth/signup to signup user. Also, this is going to make the network request, but for now, let's just do console log signing up user. And then, because we need to pass that to our signup form, let's pass it here, signup user equal this.signup user. So we have our function still not making the network request. Let's leave it like that for now. And let's see if we have something that works. So if we go to sign up, let's try to do a username and a password, hello 1 2 3, hit send, and we get our console log sign up the user. We click it again, that's going to fire again. This is again because we have an onSubmit event handler in the form. If we look at it, handle submit, and that's going to call our sign up user. Whenever the form is submitted, that function gets called in the parent component. Cool. Now let's take some time to do the same for the login form. Do the exact same things for the login form. Instead of passing it here as component, change this to render, create a function render login form, and make sure you pass in, it's going to look exactly like this or similar to this one. And make sure you pass in those props to the login form. Let's take 5 minutes to do that. And similar to the sign up user, we're going to have a login user. And for now, just have it console log logging in the user. Oh, can somebody send me the code so I don't have to type it for the render login form? That's, I guess that's what you did, right? So just copy this, paste it, change sign up for login, and then change this here again, login form. Handle change is going to be the same. Sign up user is going to be, instead of sign up user, is login user. Login user. And let's just pass that in here then. Instead of component, we change this to render. And here we pass this dot render login form. Oh, we don't have the login user yet. Let's write that one up here. Oh, where did my console log go? Login user. Make network request to slash login to login a user. Do console log login user. I'm gonna copy this, paste it here, and this, oops, that changed to signing up user. Signing, sign, ing. I don't know if that's correct. Okay. So we have these two functions, login user, sign up user. We have our two rendered login forms. Remember that we did this so that we can pass props to those components that are being rendered in the routes. And that looks like this. Render, we call that function. This function, remember, it must return the component. That's what this is doing, returning our components with the props being passed. Now let's look at our application. Everything should be working just fine. Let's see, I wanted to see if I type in a username in signup, hello123, and I go to login, because these two are sharing the same state, then we see that it's typed there as well. You may or may not want that, but right now it's just sort of good to be aware that signup is sharing the same state as login, because that state is living in here in our authenticator. Any questions so far? Yes.
What's triggering Chrome to ask me about the same password? Is that something you're doing, or is that something Chrome's doing?
That's something that you are doing because you put this username and password. That those are, well, actually those are the name of those input boxes. Those names are very common, and when Chrome sees that you're typing something in those input boxes with those names, then it's gonna ask you to, if you want to remember it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now actually for the network request. So for the network request, we're actually going to start with let's start with login. Now also, so we're going to make a network request to get the user. Where in our state should we get the user, and in the state of what component? What component should have the user in its state? Owen? The app. Why do you think the app? And well, why would we want the user at the top? Peter? Yeah, that's everything. That's correct. Everything is going to use it, and this is then where we can see that if we can keep the user in the app state at the top, then we can use Redux to handle it better in connect only the pieces that need that. But we're not going to do that now. So in the state of app, we're going to keep user, and we're going to keep another variable. User is going to start as null. Once we log in, user is going to be an object that has the user, and we're going to keep another key called. This one is not strictly necessary, but it's sort of handy to have. Is user logged in? That's going to start as false. Cool. So sort of to also emphasize that point about the user being in app, we need the user in app because, for instance, even though we haven't looked at the private route yet, we know that the private route has to check if the user is logged in. The way in which the private route is going to check if the user is logged in is going to look at, it can look at the is logged in variable in the state, and if that's true, then the user is logged in. Or you can also look at the user, but we're going to be using this one. So private route needs to have access to the user. The only way in which private route can have access to the user is if the user is stored here, or if it's stored in a parent component, right? And let's say in our home, let's say we went in our home or in a nav bar. I didn't think about this, but let's say we want to show welcome whatever username, right? That component will also need access to the user to be able to display that. So let's get into this. So here's one thing. These two functions, by the name, we know that what they're going to do. They're going to make a network request to the backend. When we log in, we know we have set up our backend to return to us the user, right? So we could have these functions actually in. We could have these functions in app, since these functions need to modify the state in app. So that's one option. We could also have just app pass in a function to our auth container to receive the user. A bit undecisive as to where we should put these two functions. Let's leave it in the auth container. These functions are strictly concerned with the user authentication. They should live in the auth container. But we're gonna have our state in app. So let's go here. Let's turn this app into a class render extends react.component. When we converted that into a class, here we're going to have state. Our state is going to be user that start in as null and is user logged in starts at false. Yes. A pure component is a component that doesn't re-render if the props haven't changed. Cool, so we're going to keep our user here. Now, we have in auth container the functions that are actually going to retrieve our user, the sign up and the login form. And somehow from the auth container, we have to send that to the app. We'll have to send, these are represented here by this cloud. We have a backend here. This component is the one that's going to make the network request to our backend. That network request comes back with the user, right? The user comes back here. that user, we need to get to app. Right? Just like when we do in any scenario, like even this is the same scenario that we see with username and password passing to the login form. Now we have that function handle change. That function handle change is taking in the username and password that live here. Password that live in the login form. They're sort of taking that information and storing it into the auth container. So the same pattern where app needs to pass in a function to the auth container. Now auth container, once that network request with the user came successfully, is going to call that function to save the user onto the app state. We're going to call that function something like set user. This function is going to receive a user and it's just going to set it to the state. So this.state user is user logged in, true. When the user logs out, we're going to need another function called remove user, for instance, to log them out. And then here, this function. So this is this function. This is the, I think the analogy that when we saw this for the first time was a butterfly catcher. Right? We could think of this function as a butterfly catcher that the parent component is given to the child component for the child to go and bring something to the parent. And that thing is the user. So this set user function, we're going to pass on to the auth container. Then once the login and sign up user happens successfully, we're going to do, let's do the login first. We're going to do something like this. This is that props that set user. Imagining that here we had already written the code that is going to fetch the user, that access call that we're going to write shortly. That gives us the user, and then we just call set user in the parent, passing in that user, which ends up putting our user in our app state. So let's actually pass this function to the auth container, and here, one more time, the pattern, we have a route that is running a component. Now that component needs props, and what do? The auth container needs a prop. Seems that Hugo is the only one that got that clear. Let's call it render auth container. If you have questions, ask Hugo. Render auth container. Then here we're going to return. Actually, this could be in one line because we're only going to pass one prop. Render auth container set user. Cool. This is that set user. And then instead of passing here the component, we're going to change this to render. And we're going to say render auth container. What's the other one? Component render auth container. And we have our component passing in a prop. Would we need, I'm not sure if we need the route props here, but if we do, then we can just add them there. Yes? Oh, here. Here? Yes. I forgot to change it. This dot render auth container. Cool. So both routes render this auth container. Okay, so if we did this correctly, our app should be working exactly the same. Cool. Okay, let's try then now. Oh, I wanted to show you, again, this set user function is the one that is going to be called once we have a successful authentication to save the user to the app state. If we go in here to the components and we look here for auth container, when we click on that, we see that now that is receiving a prop call set user. This is the function that we're going to call upon successful login. Now we actually then can log in. If we go to the auth container, we got our login. This has to make the network request to /auth/login to log in the user. So how do we make a network request? Try catch, like that. And we need to import Axios. Thank you. All the way at the top, import Axios from Axios. I think you can go all the way to the top or the bottom if you do command space up or down. Command space, not command space, command up or down. Takes you to the top. Command left or right takes you to the end or the beginning of the lines. Now here, Axios. Vonil, you were guiding me? Oh, thank you. Async, please, here. Destructuring data. Okay, so that's close, but remember that to what endpoint do we want to make this network request? To /auth/login. This is the endpoint that we set up in our backend. Remember that? Yes. Right, that's correct. That was the next point. Here it's not gonna be a get request. It's gonna be a post request because we're sending the username and password, and that information is traveling the body. So we need to do this a post request. Great. Anything else we need to do here? Yes.
We have to pass user through login user? Or get user?
No. We can access, where is the user information? State. Now, in the state we have the username and the password, and we need to send that information in the network request. How do we send that information in the network request? You know? Comma, where? The second argument on the post. So here. And here it even says, you see, this is cool about VS Code. It tells you post is expecting the first argument to be a URL, and that has to be a string. And then it's telling you the data is optional. That's what this means, and it can be of any type. It can be a string or an object. That's what we're going to pass in here. We could pass it just straight state, because we know that state has the data that we want to send, which is a username and a password. That is the data that our backend is expecting. If we had email and password, then we'll need to do some adjustments, but we can do this. Yeah, but let's just send it straight here. We send the state, and then here this data. Let's actually just look at it first. Let's do console log data, and if there is an error, this console log. I hope I have some time later on to show you a better strategy for handling errors than just console logging. Like that, let's move this console log here at the top. Login user. So our login user function is going to make a Nexus call, a network request, more generally speaking, to /auth/login. Remember that we don't have to say HTTP localhost 3100 because of the proxy that we had set up earlier. We could just say /auth/login. And then the second argument is the data that we want to send. So let's look at this. We should see something. We don't have this user yet, so I'm not gonna call this one yet. This.browse.set user. Let's go here. I want to look at the console because we set up some console logs and we're in the login. So let's do Alejo 4373 hello 123. I don't know if I typed that password correctly. Hello 123. I hit login. We get login user, and then after a short while we get this. This is the data that we're getting, and we set up this data. This is the response that we set up for the login route. It has a payload, it has a message, and it has an error property. The payload contains our user, the ID and their username. Great. So it seems that then, if this is data that we're restructuring here, our user is in the payload, so we just need to key in there. Again, going back here, this is our data. That console log was the data. It's an object that came from the Axis request from our backend. So then to set our user, then we can just say something like, well, let's do this. Let's define something here called user, const user equal data.payload, and then let's say after that, we stop console logging that, something like this. We make the network request, we destructure data. From there, we know that the user is in the data.payload, so I'm just having this extra variable here for extra clarity, and then we're going to call the function that came from the parent set user with that user to save the user onto the parent state. Yes?
Another question. Where is the Axios getting its localhost number
From the proxy. You remember that we set the proxy in the package JSON? Mm-hmm. So maybe now, if we have set up this correctly, we will end up with the user in state here. Yes?
So like, I have the proxy set up for 3100, but it's still pulling from 38,000.
Oh, you see the network request going to go to 3,000.
Yes.
Yeah, that's normal. We can see that now. Let's see if this works so far. The way in which we can verify this is we need to inspect the app state to see if the user was set in the app state via the set user function. So let's look into components here. Oh, I guess I have to refresh because the component didn't load correctly. App. Go to app. We have state is user logged in false, user null. Let's try, I think this user exists in my database. Let's see. Hello, 123. Oh, okay, nothing there. What would be the next step to troubleshoot this? I mean, okay, but so you mean like put a console log somewhere? Here, let's look at the network. Let's see if the network request went out. Well, this is kind of hard to look at, so let's clear it out and then hit login again, we get a 200 here. Note here a few things. One is if you scroll all the way down, you can see your username and your password. This is the information. This is the request payload, so to say. The information that you're sending. Actually, that is literally the request payload. This is the information you sent. And our server is returning with 200 OK, and let's go to preview, and it says user successfully logged in. Okay, so that's good. So we eliminated one possibility, which is that our request was failing. Then from there, we can then look at, oh, maybe it's the function, the set user function that's not firing, and we'll need to look at that. Also, to address Cameron's observation, you see here that our network request still seems to be going to 3,000, where our server is actually in 3,100, right? This is correct, but this is all because of the proxy. You see, this is the Webpack server running on 3,000, and I was saying the network request is going to the Webpack server, and then internally the Webpack server is the one that's forwarding to the backend. But from our React app perspective, you know, that network request only went to the Webpack server. It doesn't know what else happened to it. So that's why we get this still 3,000 here, because the request is being made to the same server, to the Webpack server. That server takes care of it, forwarding it, and then replying to our app. And our app is completely unaware of what's going on. Yes.
Is it 404?
Wait, say that again?
401
401? That means that your user is not registering your app.
I'm getting a 404.
If you're getting a 404, you're making this part of the URL is not wrong, is not correct for you.
It is.
Then you have the. Wait, is that your proxy? Show me your proxy.
My proxy is 3,000.
I think you're still making it to the full URL, but that's right. If you look at it, so that's okay. That's good. Now show me the network request for the login. In the code.
The login form or sign up?
In the so maybe restart the Webpack server. This is good. Maybe
I'm trying to reset the back end.
Oh wait. On what part is your server running? Your Webpack server.
It's running on
3,001.
Well, I can't run on 3,000 because you're running. So I'm doing
You don't have to actually log it.
No, well, since yours is on, I can't run 3,000 because you're running on 3,000.
So you have access to my.
Yeah, I can see what your. I mean, I have to run your server.
I think there's a way to stop that. Enter TCP port server URL to share with guest entry.
That's no problem.
Try now because I should have changed it to 5,000 so that we don't have that problem. Okay, so we have our set user. We saw that we don't know if this function is firing. The network request is firing correctly. We don't know if set user is firing correctly. Maybe we didn't pass the proc correctly. Set user, this dot set user. That looks all correct. Let's try here. Let's try the console log here. Setting user to app state. Let's see if we ever get this console log. Let's refresh this here. Clear this. That. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Send. The network request went okay. Console. Oh, here settings. The function is running, setting user to app state, but then we get this. This dot state is not a function.
Because you had a typo in this set state.
Spelling mistakes, line 37, 36. This dot set state. This dot state is not a function. Of course, it's not a function. Set state. So if we go back, let's go onto our app because I have a feeling that now it's gonna work. No, wait. Components. App. Look at our state here. This should be changing. That. Hello. 1, 2, 3. Enter. And we got our user in our app state. Success. So I want to make sure that everyone reaches this point.
Is there anything setting to be able to do it?
Show me. How do you change the port? Oh, okay. So now you don't have any problems with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that wasn't affecting this.
If you go to like localhost, wait, if you go to localhost 3 5000, you get to my page.
Well, I turned that one anymore, so I turned it off.
What do you mean?
I turned off the Visual Studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't see your.
Okay, got it. Then you restarted your server.
Yeah.
So, I think let's show me again the login function. Login user function. Did we ever see this console? Okay, so that's correct. On what port are you running the? Where do you have where's your backend? A get request to /auth/login will get you not found. Because what kind of request are we making?
I'm just getting true instead of user information.
Is maybe your back. Is your private true? Go back to the. Oh yeah, I think.
Did we make a change here?
Yeah, we made a change where. Wait, let's look first at your network request. Right, that's because you still showing this true. We changed that in the backend. So if you go to the backend, and we go to the login panel. I think it's off. Route's off. Right there, we can I think right now user right now user will once the user is authenticated,
Yeah,
that should do it.
so maybe just make the first one I have.
That's the console login and right that body.
That's like you have to
It's not gonna work as a
It's not
Sign up for it.
No,
Sign up for it.
no, this is not.
Sign up.
That's the one that we said.
about the error type, error thing? The state of function error? Did you already go over that?
Yeah.
You missed the
Oh, no, I had the same question as Cam, but I just.
Line 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that comes with it. Oh, it's not.
And whenever we're going to check if the user is logged in, that's something we're going to do. Like, we're going to have a the account that checks if the user is logged in. And then just say it. We'll just hold it out logged in.
I always do it today, I was just thinking different. Try fishing from yeah.
They log in.
There's a spot where there's such a problem.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
this today.
Do it out there. So I guess I'm being on.
Where hackers should do modify the
Where's that? Trader's running.
yeah, I feel like
That first day, no. That was as you said.
where maybe somebody removes the local storage.
I'm not gonna get called in.
The other thing that I saw is there's some sort of
Which one is weird? Like,
check the user things in the back.
yeah, only that you would.
Check
It sounds strange, but it's what's
local storage.
How do you
If it
do it?
doesn't match,
Maybe.
then log in by user and the user is logged in the back.
check in, right? Brown.
And I think if it's
Well, then you know the mild and the sweet. Lettuce. What's that? Nope.
But yeah,
No, I guess it's cheese and lettuce.
so also that I think it's a good one.
No, I'm getting more. Why you don't? Or does it really do anything?
Last one, it's not that.
Oh,
It's not that.
I have a burrito sometimes.
That's correct, but then they'll end up having to do more things. Still do something, so that's a, you can see it.
Oh, there's a table. I don't know. Yeah, it's like maybe go for little tiny cups. You can hold on that. It's like table. Table the whole thing. Why?
You can get it.
Oh, you mean just like get an extra sheet of bread? Why work? That's what. No. When you do it. Oh yeah, yeah. That works.
They got some like old families, doesn't exist, so they complain, if they don't like it, complain to us. That's Graham's house.
Sorry, no. Okay, so let's leave here for now. Once we come back.